This vignette will take you through the life of Emmy Noether, who lived from 1882 to 1935. We'll focus on the work that she did at Göttingen University in Germany, particularly on developing the theory of mathematical rings. Emmy Noether was born March 23, 1882 in Erlangen, Germany. She was the eldest of the four children of Max Noether and Ida Kaufmann, and she was the only girl in the family. It's worth noting that both of her parents were of Jewish origin, and that comes into her story a little bit later as the Second World War approaches. It's also important that her father was a mathematician and professor at the University of Erlangen in her hometown. Noether had a fairly typical upbringing for a female in her time in Germany. She studied German, English, French, and arithmetic in school. She took piano lessons, she loved dancing and parties with other children, and she learned things like cooking and cleaning as females would. By 1900, she had become certified to teach English and French in Bavarian girls' schools, which is a fairly typical path for someone with her status and education. But she never did end up taking such a teaching position. Rather than taking on a teaching position, Noether decided that she wished to study mathematics and languages at the University of Erlangen. It was helpful that her father worked there because at that time she was able to obtain the permission to attend classes of many of the individual professors, which was what was required at that time. By 1903, she had passed the matriculation exam, and for the next term, between 1903 and 1904, she attended lectures at Göttingen University for the first time. However, in 1904, she did return to Erlangen, and she earned a doctorate degree under a friend of her father's, Paul Gordon. Now, I'm making all of this sound very easy, but for a woman at that time, it was not easy to earn a university education. And as we move into the next section, we will talk about some of the difficulties that she encountered as she worked through this stage of her life. After completing her doctoral degree in 1907, Noether remained at the University of Erlangen, and she was able to occasionally help her father with his classes. His health was declining at the time. She also continued her research and published many of her findings, and because she was published, that allowed her reputation as a capable mathematician to grow, particularly in Germany. That reputation led her to be invited back to Göttingen University by Hilbert and Klein in 1915, and she stayed there until 1933. And that's where the most important and influential work happened, and that's the part of her career that we'll focus on when we get into the problem that we'll be considering. For the final couple of years of her life, she worked as a visiting professor at Bryn Mawr College, which is a women's college in Pennsylvania in the USA. By this point in her career, Noether was recognized as a brilliant mathematician all over the world, and among a lot of other forms of recognition, she received two special honors in 1932. First, she was awarded the Ackermann-Tübner Memorial Prize for the advancement of mathematical sciences, and that was awarded to her jointly with her colleague Emile Artin. And she also gave a plenary address at the International Congress of Mathematicians in Zurich, and that was particularly an honor because a woman would not normally have been asked to give such an address at that time. Noether died on April 14th in 1935 in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania at the age of 53. Her death followed a surgery to remove an ovarian cyst. It seemed that she was recovering, but about 4 days after the surgery, she did pass away. In his memorial address to Emmy Noether, Herman Wales said, "She was a great mathematician, the greatest, I firmly believe, that her sex has ever produced, and a great woman."